history has a pattern that nobody talks about. Every great empire that conquered Persia eventually became Persian. Alexander the Great destroyed the Persian Empire and then adopted Persian customs, Persian clothing, and Persian court ceremonies. Arab armies invaded and conquered Persia, but Persian language and culture absorbed them completely. Mongol warriors annihilated Persian civilization and then rebuilt it, becoming patrons of Persian art and poetry. How does this happen? How does a conquered civilization transform its conquerors? What made Persian culture so powerful, so attractive, so deeply magnetic that even its destroyers couldn't resist it? This is the story of history's most resilient civilization, the empire that never truly dies. To understand why conquerors became Persian, we must first understand what Persian culture actually offered. Persia had thousands of years of accumulated wisdom, art, and administrative knowledge. Persian bureaucracy was the most sophisticated system of government in the ancient world. Persian architecture was breathtakingly beautiful, inspiring awe in everyone who saw it. Persian poetry spoke to the deepest human emotions. Persian cuisine, music, and art offered pleasures that nomadic conquerors had never experienced before. Persian administrators knew how to run complex economies and large populations. When military conquerors arrived with swords but no system of governance, Persia offered exactly what they needed: civilization itself. After Alexander destroyed the Persian Empire, his generals divided his conquests among themselves. The Seleucid Empire inherited Persia. Initially, the Greek rulers tried to impose Greek culture on their Persian subjects. They built Greek cities, they promoted Greek language, they encouraged Greek customs. But something unexpected happened. The Persian population was simply too large, too cultured, and too sophisticated to be absorbed into Greek culture. Instead, the reverse occurred. Seleucid rulers began adopting Persian court ceremonies. They married Persian women. They learned Persian language. They patronized Persian traditions. Within generations, the supposedly Greek rulers of Persia looked, acted, and governed like Persian kings. Greece had conquered Persia. Persia had absorbed Greece. The single most powerful tool of Persian cultural survival was the Persian language itself. Persian, also called Farsi, is one of the most beautiful, expressive, and poetic languages ever developed by human civilization. It became the language of literature, philosophy, and administration across the entire Islamic world. Even after Arab conquest, Persian didn't disappear. It transformed. It absorbed Arabic vocabulary while maintaining its structure and soul. Persian became the language of culture and refinement throughout Central Asia, India, and the Middle East. Rulers who spoke Arabic as their native tongue chose to write poetry in Persian because Persian simply expressed beauty better. Language became Persia's most powerful weapon of cultural conquest. In 651 AD, Arab armies completed their conquest of Persia. The Sassanid Empire fell. Islam replaced Zoroastrianism as the dominant religion. Arabic became the official language of the new caliphate. On the surface, it looked like Persian civilization had been completely absorbed into Arab Islamic culture. But look deeper. Persian administrators became indispensable to the Arab caliphate. They ran the tax system. They organized the bureaucracy. They managed the postal system. Persian culture and knowledge flowed into the heart of the Islamic world. Persian scholars translated ancient texts. Persian architects designed the greatest mosques. Persian poets defined Islamic literature. The Arabs had conquered Persia militarily. Persia had conquered the Arabs culturally, completely and permanently. The Islamic Golden Age, that extraordinary period of scientific and philosophical achievement between the 8th and 13th centuries, was largely built on Persian foundations. Persian scholars led the way in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and literature. The great mathematician who gave us algebra was Persian. The physician who wrote the medical encyclopedia that European universities used for centuries was Persian. The poets whose words moved hearts across the Islamic world were Persian. The architects who designed the most beautiful buildings in the medieval world were Persian. When historians celebrate the Islamic Golden Age, they are largely celebrating Persian genius expressed through Islamic culture. Persia didn't just survive the Arab conquest, it defined what came after. The most dramatic example of Persian cultural power came after the Mongol invasion. The Mongols killed millions of Persians. They burned cities and libraries. They destroyed the irrigation systems that made agriculture possible. By any measure, this should have been the end of Persian civilization. But within 2 generations, something extraordinary happened. The Mongol rulers of Persia, called the Il-Khanate, converted to Islam. They began speaking Persian. They hired Persian administrators to run their government. They commissioned Persian manuscripts, paintings, and poetry. They built magnificent Persian-style architecture. The grandchildren of those who burned Persian libraries were funding the creation of new ones. The greatest destroyers in Persian history became its greatest patrons. After the Mongol devastation came another conqueror, Timur, also known as Tamerlane. He swept through Persia with almost Mongol-level destruction in the late 14th century. Cities burned again. Populations suffered again. But Timur did something paradoxical. He was simultaneously a destroyer and a passionate lover of Persian culture and art. He gathered Persian scholars, artists, and architects and brought them to his capital, Samarkand. His successors, the Timurids, became perhaps the greatest patrons of Persian art and literature in history. The Timurid Renaissance produced breathtaking Persian miniature paintings, magnificent architecture, and extraordinary poetry. Once again, a conqueror had fallen completely under Persian civilization's irresistible spell. By the 16th century, Persian identity had survived Alexander, the Arabs, the Mongols, and Timur. Now the Safavid dynasty emerged to crystallize Persian identity permanently. The Safavids made Shia Islam the state religion, creating a distinctive Persian Islamic identity that separated Iran from its Sunni neighbors. They made Persian the absolute language of art, administration, and culture. They built the incomparable city of Isfahan, described by contemporaries as half the world because of its beauty. Persian carpet weaving, miniature painting, architecture, and poetry reached their absolute peak under Safavid patronage. After centuries of conquest, Persia had finally created an identity so strong, so beautiful, and so distinctive that nobody could ever erase it again. What Persian history teaches us is a fundamental lesson about the difference between hard power and soft power. Hard power is military force, armies, weapons, conquest. Soft power is cultural attraction, language, art, food, ideas, and ways of living. Every conqueror who came to Persia had overwhelming hard power. Alexander had the finest army in the world. Arab armies were unified by unstoppable religious conviction. Mongols were the most fearsome military force in human history. All of them defeated Persia militarily with hard power, but none of them could defeat Persian culture, because Persian culture offered something their hard power couldn't provide: beauty, wisdom, refinement, and a sophisticated way of organizing human life. The most powerful proof of Persian cultural resilience is the Persian language itself, still alive and thriving today. Over 110 million people across the world speak Persian as their native language. In Iran, it is called Farsi. In Afghanistan, it is called Dari. In Tajikistan, it is called Tajik. 3 different countries, 3 different names, but essentially the same ancient Persian language that Cyrus the Great's people spoke 2,500 years ago. Persian literature produced Rumi, whose poetry is among the best-selling in the United States today. Hafez, whose words are consulted like an oracle in Iranian homes. Omar Khayyam, whose verses are quoted worldwide. The language survived everything. It still speaks. Perhaps the most surprising example of Persian cultural power is its profound influence on India. The Mughal Empire, which ruled most of India from the 16th to 18th centuries, was founded by Central Asian rulers who were deeply shaped by Persian culture. Persian became the official language of the Mughal court and administration. The Taj Mahal, arguably the most beautiful building on earth, was designed by Persian-influenced architects using Persian artistic principles. Mughal miniature painting was a direct continuation of Persian miniature tradition. Urdu, the national language of Pakistan and widely spoken in India, is essentially a mixture of Persian, Arabic, and local Indian languages. Persian culture conquered India without a single Persian soldier setting foot there. History is full of civilizations that were conquered and simply disappeared: the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the ancient Egyptians as a living culture, the Romans as a distinct identity. Why did Persia survive when all these great civilizations faded? Several factors combined uniquely in Persia. The Persian language was beautiful enough to be chosen over others. Persian administrative knowledge was practical enough to be indispensable. Persian art and architecture were magnificent enough to inspire awe in anyone. Persian poetry touched universal human emotions that transcended cultural boundaries, and critically, Persians maintained their identity with fierce pride through every conquest, never fully abandoning who they were, even while adapting brilliantly to each new ruler and each new reality. Today, Persian cultural influence continues to spread across the world in ways most people never recognize. Persian poetry is read in over 50 languages globally. Persian carpet designs are recognized and valued on every continent. Persian cuisine has influenced cooking from Turkey to India to Central Asia. Persian architectural principles appear in buildings from Morocco to Uzbekistan. Iranian cinema is among the most critically acclaimed in the world. Persian classical music continues to be performed and studied internationally. The ancient culture that Cyrus the Great built, that survived Alexander, the Arabs, the Mongols, and Timur, continues to quietly conquer hearts and minds worldwide. Not through armies, through beauty. Tech. Alexander conquered Persia but became Persian. Arabs conquered Persia but wrote their greatest literature in Persian. Mongols destroyed Persia but rebuilt it more beautifully than before. Timur burned Persian cities but gathered Persian artists like treasures. What is the secret? Persian civilization understood something fundamental. Military power is temporary, but cultural power is eternal. Armies fade. Empires collapse. Languages and art and ideas endure. Persia never needed to conquer the world with armies because it conquered the world with beauty, wisdom, and the irresistible attraction of a sophisticated civilization. This is why every conqueror became Persian, and this is why Persia will never truly die. This is Historiopedia. History that feels real,